If I didn't ask, would they care? Jimin and the silent screams that echo behind the untimely solo tour, a soft sentence that is barely audible, but the impact is as loud as a rumble. Sitting under a warm light in a recent interview, Jimin said it in a flat tone, almost like talking to himself. I don't want to ask for too much. If I didn't ask, would they care? To outsiders, it may sound like the usual personal reflection. But for those who follow Jimin's journey closely, those who remember how his every move on stage brought emotion, how his every song was like a confession of the heart, those lines were more than just words. It was a wound, opened on social media. The subtle confession immediately spread and lit a spark in the hearts of her fans. Many immediately attributed it to the condition of Jimin's solo tour, which to this day has not yet begun, even though his album's Face and Muse have made history and established his position as one of the most prominent soloists among his group mates. Why isn't there a concert? Why is there no announcement? Why is it that everything is asked for, not given? While several other BTS members have roamed the world stages with their solo performances, Jimin has remained silent, lagging behind the shadows. Not because he can't, not because he wasn't ready, but because maybe he was waiting for the green light, waiting for confession, waiting for someone in the meeting room. HYB turned to him and said, "Your turn." But time goes on and the wait begins to feel more like abandonment than a process. Fans who were initially patient began to question, is Jimin considered less worthy? Is he being punished for being too quiet? Or more frighteningly, has he himself been persuaded to believe that asking for more is selfish? His gentle words opened a huge wound in the Korean music industry. How can an artist who has given so much emotion, time, soul still feel the need to ask if he deserves something he should be entitled to? How can someone who held such a vital role in BTS's image and success still grapple with feeling invisible? It didn't take long before the question resonated in the global ARMY community. Online forums filled with discussion, hashtags began trending, and one statement became a centerpiece of both outrage and solidarity. Stop making Jimin have to ask for what's already his. One tweet from an Indonesian fan even wrote, "We didn't ask for more. We demand justice." The post crossed linguistic and cultural boundaries, was shared thousands of times, and became a kind of unofficial motto of the movement that was taking shape. A collective push to ensure that Jimin's voice no longer sinks, but more than a critique of HYB, the narrative mirrors something deeper. How the entertainment industry, whose glitter is often blinding, still manages to manage love, hard work, and dedication in cold, inhuman metrics. And in the midst of that rumble, Jimin did not shout his protest. He just spoke slowly. But the world heard and his silence. Strength is stored. In the holidays he took alone, in his decision to temporarily move away from the spotlight, in the tattoos that slowly disappeared from his body, everything began to be read as a symbol. Not just holidays, but a statement that something is broken, or at least begins to crack. News from behind the scenes began to emerge. Some sources say that Jimin has been proposing the concept of his solo tour for a long time. He is rumored to have prepared a list of songs, visual design, even locations for a tour in Asia, Europe, to Latin America. All of them are carefully curated, artistically approved. But he was not given the green light. What exactly is in the way? What makes this wound even deeper is the fact that Jimin is not a new artist. He is BTS's main dancer, an irreplaceable emotional mover. He writes, sings, dances, cries on stage. He presents a personal story in the works. And when Face was released, she not only broke records, but also placed herself among the few Korean singers who could reach the international market purely from the power of expression and interpretation. But until now, Face has not been given a tour. There was no celebration, no top of the stage for all that hard work. And in the silence, one painful irony emerges. When an artist of Jimin's class still has to wait for permission to celebrate himself, then who exactly is setting the value in the industry? HYB never publicly discussed this delay. But their silence is now beginning to feel like deliberate neglect. And in that void of communication, the public begins to build their own narrative. Strong narrative. Narrative in favor of Jimin now. The movement in support of Jimin's solo tour is no longer just small voices on the Twitter timeline. It is an increasingly organized movement. Petitions, digital campaigns, and even public advertising projects are beginning to appear. The hashtags #LetJimin and #GiveJimin began to appear in different languages. This is no longer a request. This is a lawsuit. Korean media began to cover. Initially hesitated, only to mention subtly.
But their tone changed.
Some even began quoting industry sources who stated that Jimin had indeed prepared everything, only to be given a place, and in the midst of it all, Jimin remained silent. But his silence is now a declaration. Perhaps he will never explicitly blame anyone. But the world is old enough to read the meaning of silence, because Jimin's silence is not indifference. It is a language he has mastered since the beginning of his career. Body language, eye glances, tone of voice, and this time, one little question. If I don't ask, will they care? That's not a doubt. That's not a weakness. It was the most gentle way a person exposed a wound that was too deep to scream, and perhaps for the first time, everyone heard, because now, even if HYB still chooses silence, the world will not. Army will not. And maybe it's the only voice Jimin needs to finally step onto a stage that should have been his for a long time. However, as time went on and no certainty emerged on the part of the agency, disappointment began to turn into determination. When Jimin's voice didn't get the response it deserved from the inside, the voices of the fans began to echo from the outside, demanding the space he had long been supposed to have. They did not wait for an official statement. They move on their own with passion, with love, and with the belief that if the industry does not give place, then it is they who will create it. They relive Jimin's every performance, from the mesmerizing Lie on the Wings tour stage to Set Me Free PT2, which is so raw and full of emotional intensity. Every body expression, every sharp glance, every drop of sweat, all became irrefutable proof that Jimin not only deserves a tour, he needs it. Not just as a promotion, but as a form of self-expression that has become his identity, and the public began to realize that this is not just about an artist who has not yet toured. It's about how an artist is positioned in power structures, about how fragility can be hidden behind a smile and achievements, about how a person can give so much and still feel like they have to wait their turn, as if the love he gave to the world was not fully returned to him. Meanwhile, Jimin's gaze in some of his vacation photos, beautiful yet poignant, invites more questions than answers. Many have asked, is he trying to heal something that even he himself has not been able to decipher? Is his decision to travel alone just a way to rediscover the space he once lost? In a culture that often requires artists to keep smiling, Jimin chose silence. But his silence is not a form of helplessness. It was a way to take back control. As he once did through lyrics and movement, this time he speaks through absence, through the empty space that should be filled by concert stages that have not yet arrived. And the public, especially the army, does not stand still. They collect data, construct a common thread from every little statement, connect the dots from every gesture, and form their own narrative that is now unstoppable. Jimin is not only preserved in memory, it is fought in reality. What hurts is, none of this should have happened. An artist like Jimin shouldn't have to go through this silent struggle. He shouldn't have to convince anyone that he's worth enough to have a solo tour, but perhaps that is precisely why that simple sentence has such incredible power. If I don't ask, will they care? That sentence forces us all to look deeper, at the system, at the habits, at the way this industry treats its artists, and right now the world is asking, if Jimin decides to no longer ask, what will happen? Perhaps that was the scariest moment. Because in the silence of a Jimin, a movement can be born that changes the entire industrial landscape.